In the last two videos, we were talking about cross-contour lines and how to use them. In the first one, I explained how to draw them on each of the primary shapes based on their characteristics. And then the next video was about practical explanations of this technique, how to use them in your drawing and the shapes you see around. But the best way to understand the concept of cross-contour lines is to simply practice drawing them by observing a subject. As I always say, it is always good to have more examples. So let's go for it. Simple objects like apples work best if you're new to this concept, so that's why I chose this as my example in this video. To start, as you can see, we find the closest primary shape to the apple, which of course is a circle. In order to effectively shade the form, we first need to understand the form we're shading. Next step, we turn this flat circle into a sphere using cross-contour lines to know the angle and perspective of the apple. And you can check the link above to see how to draw spheres. The apple that I want to draw is a little lower than the horizon and is placed below it. So we want a circle that we are looking at from above, but with a slight slope. After finding the right angle and perspective for our circle, we draw the edges and contours of the apple within this circle. The difference between contour and cross contour is that we typically use contour lines to define the edges of the objects and some details within them. They help us identify the shape. Here we can see the contours of the apple, but it still looks flat. To give this apple more dimensionality, we need to add cross contours. So we draw cross contour lines which travel across the form and flow over the form of the object. They indicate the direction and showing us the lumps, the bumps, and other details we need to make a realistic illustration. It includes changes of planes within the form. So far, the video was a review of previous tutorials, and I still recommend you to watch the previous tutorial from the link above. So as a review, find the most similar basic shape to your object first, then according to the explanations in the previous video, draw cross-contour lines on your subject. After that, using this division, I can get a general map for shading my shape. This cross-contour serves as a skeleton form or guide for our shading. Then after this, for the next step, we divide this spherical shape of the apple into several planes and we'll shade each plane separately. Planes can be thought of as flat tiles arranged in 3D space to create a form. For example, this sphere has a front plane, top plane, side planes, and many more between that together resemble a sphere. They create the illusion of form. Of course, a sphere is rounded without any flat planes, but thinking of it in this way will help to imagine the sphere as a 3D object and aid in the shading process. You can think of each section and imagine which direction the plane faces, then compare it to the direction of the light source. The plane facing the light is the lightest and progressively get darker as they turn away. This gradation of tone on the planes gives a sense of light on the form and helps to show the three-dimensionality of the sphere. If you want to round out the edges to indicate a softer form, then soften the edge between these planes. Though sometimes leaving the edges between the planes hard, even on what looks like a rounded form, can help to illustrate the structure more effectively. It's good to imagine each form as a block and identify each minor plane as either being part of the top, bottom, front, back, or side planes. So for this one, consider the three-dimensional form that you're drawing rather than just blurring the edges. When you're simplifying a form, what you're doing is decreasing the number of planes that form consists of. Shade these planes with soft edges and it gives the illusion of millions of planes. So with all these explanations, let's go for final shading the apple. First, determine the angle of the light source, let's say top left, and imagine the planes that make up this form. All the planes that face the light will belong to the light family, and all the planes that face away from the light will belong to the shadow family. I like to first of all determine the core shadow, which is a divider of two families, a darker strip at the edge of the shadow. And for the reflected light, fill in the shadow side with clean dark value but lighter than the core shadow. The most important part is to separate the shadow family from the light family. Next, identify the point of the center light. The halftones appear as gradation, darkest near the core shadow and lightest at the center light. And finally, highlight. The highlight is different from the center light. Again, you can check the video from the link above where I explain about light and dark elements. And for the last step, we draw a cast shadow on the opposite side of the light source on the ground. Then let's add some details and work on our planes on this apple. So choose a subject, and as I always say, start with simple objects and then after a few tries go for more challenging ones and create your own cross-contour drawings and then shade it using cross-contour lines as a map for your shading. It's a great exercise. Hope you guys find this tutorial useful. I'll see you for the next one.